What's up? It's me, Imogen, back after so long. After such a horribly protracted absence of streams. I was sick. I get sick a lot, apparently. Or I've been sick twice in the last 2 months, which seems like a lot to me. Uh, but I guess it isn't. I don't generally get sick that much, so perhaps it's just an anomalous occurrence. But hello, stylish fail. Hello, lavendism. Welcome in. You're making paella, stylish fail. That's pretty badass. I hope that turns out well. Cooking is wonderful. I love I love cooking. So, glad that you're doing that. That's a wonderful thing to be doing. Uh, yeah, yeah. That's life. Um, huh, streaming, streaming. I'm streaming again. That's right. I have to like get back into the mindset. It's very warm. It continues to get warmer and warmer in this place called Las Vegas, and it gets increasingly inhospitable to the point where I am waking up earlier and earlier, because it is kind of pleasant in the mornings, and if I wake up early and the window is open, it can kind of be okay. Early is just like 4:30 a.m. though, so I've already been up for 4.5 hours on this morning. I've already done some reading. I tried to do some music and I just got stuck. And then I watered the plants and pulled some weeds and kind of cleaned up the backyard and made myself breakfast. And uh, yeah, I was doing some reading out loud, which is always lovely. Really like that. You got in a zine, Stylish Fail. Got in a zine with poetry, perhaps? Or into a zine with something else that you've submitted. I mean, there's many things that can go in zines: art, recipes, essays, and comment, thought. Zines are quite a lovely, flexible thing, right? Of course, it'll turn out while I'm making it. I like that. I like the confidence, Stylish Fail. That's excellent. Um, yeah. Uh, the big, I don't know. I don't know if there's big life updates. I feel like when I get sick, oftentimes the sort of wallowing in the misery leads me to like figure things out about life and about myself. So so in this case, I think I came out of being sick with more of a strong conviction about free will. Is maybe my philosophic development. I really struggled with this idea of will for a long time, and really wasn't convinced of this idea of free will. And like technically I'm still not, right? There's like a causal sort of underpinning to all things. But the human mind has this ability to construct the illusion of free will. And I think human existence, perception, everything really hinges upon the belief that like I exist, right? Without that, it is like oblivion. It is emptiness. It's maybe a Buddhist enlightenment, which I also think is impossible. That's the other new development. I'm no longer seeking enlightenment. um, but so yes, Phil, no choice but to believe in free will, and believing in it then allows one a lot of affords one a lot of possibility mentally, which I've been sort of enjoying this morning, because I came to this realization yesterday that like you really can't get by without free will, without accepting it. And if I am to challenge it, my entire life will be miserable. So, other new development is I'm trying to get into like voice acting, but more so voiceover and like audiobook voiceovering. Uh, because I mean, I already have all the equipment, right? I have a nice microphone. I have an audio interface. I'm fluent in Ableton now, or somewhat fluent, fluent enough to edit just raw voice audio. And I happen to be able to speak for like 5 hours on end, which is a skill that I've developed over a lot of time streaming. So I have all of the skills needed to like voice audiobooks. I've also been told a lot that my voice is very nice and I have a good reading voice, and in stream particularly, I'll say that a lot. So that's something I'm beginning to investigate, how to voice audiobooks, and then I can make money, because there is like a reasonable amount of money in that, not an immense amount, but enough to like live and support myself, provided that I like set my mind to it. Which now I can set my mind to things because I have free will. Hello from the break room, or hello to you in the break room, Furry Combat Wombat. A belief in free will allows for morality to be enforceable. Yes, absolutely. Uh, will require morality requires an understanding of will. Uh, Now I'm still not exactly sure about like the moralities I'm interested in enforcing, or whether I'm interested in enforcing moralities, because usually I've just checked out of that. The sort of beauty of like a non-self or a non-action, which I maybe prior is a space I really wanted to adopt, is it excuses one from morality, essentially. You just fully check out from action, and thus you check out from like moral existence, and that's really beautiful. That's like a salvation, but it's not a salvation I think is possible. So it goes. Imogen, would it be possible for you to read half of my fanfic today? It's 4,000 words in total, so I will not ask you to read the entire thing. I had posted it like 10 days ago. I also included context points in the comment thread for it, since you might get confused. Very possibly. I very possibly can read yours. Now, posting it 10 days ago, I think, is not that long ago, given that I haven't really streamed. Like I missed like 3 streams out of the last 4, which is like 7 days, right? So there might be things that are older. That being said, I'm very interested in reading your fan fiction, and I think it will be the first fan fiction we read on stream, unless we count the story from that was like the sort of Ace Attorney inspired story that we read the other time. But that's not fan fiction; it's more of like a similar setting, right? I didn't end up submitting anything to Poetry Magazine, but I submitted a couple poems to a different magazine last week. I should be hearing back from them on Saturday. The beauty of quick response times, hearing back from them soon. I wish you the best. I think you should expect to be rejected, right? Especially on a first ever submission. Rejection is something you will, if you continue to submit your poetry to places, something you will quickly learn to accept, or you will learn to stop submitting your poetry to places. So if you do get rejected, don't be bothered by it or whatever. It's just, there are way more poets than there is space for poetry and things saturated or whatever. What's poppin', Wobble Dobbsy? Welcome in. Always good to have you. Yeah, I submitted, I think, 6 poems to poetry. I submitted a couple other things recently. One was to a magazine called McNeese, which is maybe a college as well. And then I submitted to a journal called Show, and they rejected me because quick turnaround, because I submitted at the start of their submission period. Did I send my McNeese submission? I feel like I did. There's a really good chance that I didn't. It still says in progress. Guess I didn't. Okay. Should probably go back and do that. Dinner time. Have a good one. Have a good one, Stylish Fail. Enjoy your dinner. Enjoy your evening, probably. Oh yeah, it's dinner. That's crazy. It's 9 a.m. and it's like evening. Time zones are so cool. We live on a frickin' globe, and I think that's crazy, and that's awesome. So cool. I think I just want to jump into reading stuff. My voice feels like it just wants to dive into some meat, so to speak. I don't know if that's a good way to describe y'all's writing as meat for my mind to consume or something, but we'll allow it. And I think we'll read your fan fiction, Lavendism. This is Fatui et Stelle. Pronunciation is great. Um, a Genshin Impact fan fiction, which is super cool because I've never played Genshin Impact. I'm gonna fix that because that's a black screen. But anyone who's been around knows that this happens every time. Translates to fools and stars. Fatui is still I. That makes sense. Stella, star. Fatui, fool, foolish. That makes sense. Okay. So here's the submission, and there's a whole bunch of context, like a whole bunch of context. Now, I would often say, right, in prose, that if you need to provide that much context, that's probably not a good thing. That being said, this is fan fiction, and fan fiction, I think, explicitly assumes like a sort of literacy of the IP, right? If you're reading Genshin Impact fan fiction, you know Genshin Impact. So I actually appreciate the context for a lay person like myself. It would be very difficult to write fan fiction, I think, if you forced yourself to do so in a way that anyone could understand, because that would just require so much like re-exposition, and then anyone who knew would be like, why are you telling me about the characters I've already spent hundreds of hours with? So it's because you know nothing about the game, so I naturally gave a lot of context. Yes, exactly. And I think fan fiction is a very sort of special genre because of this, right? You have all of these things you know about your audience, and your audience knows all these things about the world, right? You're writing in something that's already understood, and I think that's really cool. That's very, very cool if you're in the know. So we're gonna study up Tevat. We're just gonna run through this. Is the continent that Genshin Impact resides in. It's the planet's unnamed, Black Seas, everything outside Tevat. Cool. Sumeru, one of the 7 nations of Tevat, nation of wisdom, and Dendro, an element looks green like nature. Wanderer slash hat guy, an abandoned prototype puppet of the god of okay, fan fiction, right? Looks like a human, was an antagonist, part of the Fatui Harbingers, Fool Harbingers. I know some of this is cut off. However, once defeated, he attempted to erase himself to atone for his sins. Failed to erase himself. His name can be chosen by the player. Okay, so he's blank. Gotcha. Kusanali Buar Nahida, god of Dendro and wisdom, also called Archon. Matra are guards. Blonde slash ether slash traveler is the main protagonist of Genshin Impact. Okay. Has a bad history with the Wanderer. Paimon. I know who Paimon is from like memes and stuff. A Fontaine, a Nation of Justice and Hydra, which is water. Nilu, dancer from Sumeru. It doesn't get much screen time. Navia is a crime boss. Mini Durin is a dragon. Nodcry is a nation that has no... Okay. Cool. 5 sinners, highly dangerous group. Natlan is based off South America. Okay, so we have a lot of like nations, we have a lot of people, and they're very connected to like elemental things and elements and gods and things like that. And we're gonna just dive into fan fiction and see what happens. See if we make it out alive. Really, I think is the goal here. Um, and I have some questions for you, Lavendism, right? Particularly since we're reading fan fiction and I don't really know anything about the IP, and that might limit my ability to like truly appreciate the story you're telling. My question is, with what intention do you submit this? Would you like me to, you know, attempt to critique it as a story and as the structure and like the writing in it? Is this more just like appreciating? What any are there any questions or things you'd like me to look out for and that kind of stuff? Or maybe you're just trying to sell me on Genshin Impact, and if I really like this story, it will make me want to sink 500 hours into the game and spend lots of money to roll for new characters with more stars or something. Critique would be appreciated, but you can just appreciate would be appreciated, but you can just appreciate it too. Okay, um, sounds good. And yeah, let's see what happens. Here is what was it called? It was called Fatui et Stelle, Fools and Stars, Genshin Impact, fanfiction. Sumeru, farewell. The Sumeru Academia, a scholar's sanctuary, the most prestigious, right? There's an S there. Higher education school in Tevat, the domain of the Kusanali, the god of wisdom. To him, it was but a laughingstock, his cage. You see, the puppet, commonly known as the Wanderer, wasn't quite a researcher or a scholar. His admission to the school was but a way to make him repent for his crimes. What crimes, you may ask? Oh, just the usual. A bit of blasphemy, theft, forgery, desertion, mass murder, an attempt of genocide, etc. And let's not forget his successful attempt at deification, plus history modification, but we don't speak of that incident. I like your voice here, right? We're directly talking to the person as if we are, telling a story to someone verbally, right? You may ask, you see, right? I appreciate this sometimes, and I think maybe within fan fiction, within this sort of lighter tone, generally, it works, and I think that light tone is nice to contrast and provide some humor, right, to the blasphemy, theft, forgery, desertion, mass murder, attempted genocide, etc., history modification, attempted deification, right? So when we lighten that up, it makes the heavy stuff kind of play off of that really nicely. The Wanderer does a little trolling. It seems that the Wanderer has done quite a bit of trolling, yes. He knew deep down that Kusanali, Buer, rather, was not one to do such a thing, trapping him here for public service. But the repenting thought was what kept him semi-sane while he was forced to interact with those scholars who followed him around like anxious little insects. It gives him a headache just thinking about them. He walked through the halls of the academia. A frown grew on his face when he remembered his core mission for today. Right. He was supposed to be meeting with Buer, wasn't he? It was for his usual checkup, to make sure he's done no wrong. On his upward walk to the sanctuary, the Matra bowed before him, that's guards, I believe, yet again, and then let him in, making him narrow his eyes for the nth time. Seriously, when are those Matra going to stop doing that? It's very irritating, and it brings back bad memories. Sighing, he opened the doors and saw the Dendro Archon waiting for him, then walked toward her, anticipating the inevitable title coming up. Hello, Wanderer. He didn't respond to her greeting verbally, merely crossing his arms and humming an acknowledgement. What's my newest mission? She smiled with quiet contemplation. There's nothing new to concern yourself with. If you wish to do something with your time, however, the traveler is visiting us out of the blue. Wanderer scrunched his nose. What? I didn't see him on the way here. What do you mean? The door to the sanctuary flung open, and a particular blonde was, of course, there. Paimon floated about and whined. Why are we visiting Nahida so soon? We should be packing our bags for Fontaine. The traveler, meanwhile, laughed in his annoyingly cheerful way. We'll get there soon, but I wanted to say goodbye to a few more people, he explained to the flying menace. Wanderer observed this exchange, with his frown making a return. Surely, the blonde didn't come back to say bye to him, of all people. That's nonsensical. But what did he mean by people? Hey, blank. Nahida. The traveler greeted. Wanderer huffed. Hello. That was that. They didn't get along with each other, which was an understatement, and a half, but true. If the traveler did come back to say bye to Wanderer, it would be odd, considering their history. I think you do a good job in your dialogue so far, is something I notice. Something that's really important with dialogue is to make each character sound distinct from each other. And to express, that they kind of have different tone, they have different, ways of seeing the world, speaking, engaging. Right, so you have Paimon whining, why are we visiting Nahida so soon? We should be packing our bags for Fontaine. Right? And we have, the traveler saying, hey, right, casual kind of tone here. And I think it communicates a laid backedness, whereas, our Wanderer is very curt. We have this hello, right? We have this what's my newest mission? Very, very no nonsense. Very, very straightforward. Yeah, dialogue is great. World building is not great. Yeah, so, I mean, here's the thing. When you're writing fan fiction, I think you have this double-edged sword of the fact that your audience knows your world already. Double-edged sword because it does one thing really well. It gives everyone reading, because everyone reading fan fiction is pretty much going to know, a shorthand. You talk about you say the Sumero Academia, right? That's like your first thing. And I think that's actually really good, because what you do is everyone who has played Genshin Impact, I mean, maybe, I don't know whether Sumero Academia is on a main quest line or whatever, but everyone who's played Genshin and been to that location immediately conjures in their mind the exact same image that you have. And that's really, really nice. Really good. For you, right? You don't have to do that much work on a lot of things, because if you just say, here's this place, everyone who's read the fanfiction or who's played the game and is reading the fanfiction knows. Now, like you say in chat, I need to get better at describing things. And I think I agree with you here, right? Your dialogue's very good, and I think a lot of your just and even some of your inner thought and your storyteller narrator is nice. But in terms of concrete details, I do think there's a bit missing maybe. And another cool thing about fan fiction is it gives you an opportunity to create the world, to create the fiction, right? Recreate the fiction in more detail than it was given to you before, right? So you play Genshin Impact and you go to the Sumeru Academia, and you maybe even see the Wanderer and the Traveler and Paimon and all of these characters who I don't have a mental referent for, except Paimon, I guess. and and you have this opportunity to like make them yours and to give your reader something more than the game gave them. And I think that's probably why a lot of people read fan fiction. I mean, I'm not someone who's super in that space. I'm not a reader of fan fiction. I never really liked an IP enough to go seek out fan fiction and want more. But I think the impulse there is probably like, I really loved this thing. I want more of this world. I want more of these characters, and I want to see other people's like creative spins and takes on the world that I really like. So if you think yourself as a writer to these settings and these characters, and you think about how they are in the game, I think a way that you could maybe naturally lead yourself to better description is thinking about, placing them in the writing, and how can I as in you, how can I place my spin on this? How can I put my artistic stamp, and how can I add the things that Genshin Impact doesn't give me to this story that I want to tell? Maybe Genshin Impact, as you walk around the Sumeru Academia, just doesn't have that much. Well, games are naturally missing a lot of sensory information, which writing can convey. A game can't tell you how a place smells. Games are sight and sound. It doesn't tell you touch. It doesn't tell you fine texture, because like these are like models rendered in a game and you have a number of polygons that something can maybe render. I think colors as well, Catholic, right? Video games are limited as to how much light and shade and color are available. So I think if you think about within your writing, rendering Genshin Impact in a way that's almost more realistic, more artistic, more vibrant than Genshin Impact itself is. You look at Paimon as a character model. Let's look up Paimon, right? Uh, let's look up Paimon. Paimon. Okay. Right. Here's Paimon in Genshin Impact. Welcome, Nikki. We're talking about Genshin Impact and Paimon. Uh, Hair lacks texture that we would see in real life if Paimon existed, actually. Right. Uh, there's right just by the nature of the art style, right? Genshin Impact leaves things out that you can include in writing in terms of these textures, colors, feelings, right? Sensory information, because a game is fundamentally, going to be an approximation. And writing is also an approximation, but it approximates the world differently than games do, right? So you can create a version of Genshin Impact that is vivid in the ways that Genshin Impact can't be. So you maybe, and maybe you even let the knowledge of your audience, the knowledge that this is fan fiction, carry the fact, right? Carry the fact that people can conjure sights and sounds related to this place. You say Sumeru Academia, and maybe literally people who've played Genshin Impact see a place and they maybe even hear the music from that place. So tell us about how this old dusty book scholar place like smells, right? Tell us about how it feels, or the silence of the place, or the little lifelike sounds that you don't get in the game, the shuffling of robed scholars and these kinds of things, right? Tell us about the texture of a leather cover of an old manuscript, right? um, and and that might help, right? You can also have maybe the Wanderer do more things. The Wanderer's kind of thinking, and then he goes up and talks to people, right? And maybe if we see like a little bit of some of how the Wanderer spends their time here, some of how what just the Wanderer doing some stuff, and maybe that would be contradictory with your sort of like storyteller voice. The storyteller voice sort of is necessarily depersonalized because it's like distant, it's telling a story. So maybe that doesn't work. And maybe that's another issue. Well, you could think about, I'm just saying things. I'm just throwing out ideas. I don't know if any of these will help, but we're telling a story. You see the puppet commonly known as, right? We say, what crimes you may ask. There is someone literally in this text speaking the story to us. That's how I interpret it. I would love for you to think about who that is, right? Because maybe it's a person within the world. That would be really cool. And maybe you can even speak in a way that some of your attentive readers would pick up on the fact that it's a literal Genshin character telling a story within the Genshin world of another character. But also, as you personalize your narrator, they are naturally going to want to describe things differently because they're a person, right? This person is a scholar from the Sumeru Academia. Well, then they're gonna have a lot of knowledge, and they're gonna talk about these little things about it. They are, but I feel like we sort of use this tool, you see the you may ask, the second person, the interaction, and we fall away from it once the dialogue and the action begins. And I think you could actually leverage it within that, a literal person telling the story, so that they provide their spin, their sort of unreliability as a narrator, to give some interest and give some excitement to the proceedings going on. Because everyone tells a story with their own flair. Everyone tells a story with their own spin. And that would be kind of cool, I think. Moving forward, reading ahead. I think we can do that. Okay, we had welcome Nikki, welcome Ray, welcome Kathzik. Y'all came in, and we're just in it very early on this stream. So, Wander says hello. I think we were here. Paimon greeted Buer, but not him, which Wander was completely fine with. He felt like he was fourth-wheeling this conversation anyway. He wanted nothing to do with the topics they were discussing, and he was only there because Buer decided to summon him. Then why did his eyes keep drifting towards the traveler? How irritating, wanting to look at the man who he almost assassinated. Link, you okay? The blonde said, tearing him out of his thoughts. You seem annoyed. It's nothing, he hissed through his teeth. I kind of like this. That's fun. I do think it sort of contradicts with the notion of this being spoken by someone, though, right? The sort of strike through. But if you had a storyteller, if you continue the use of the storyteller as a narrative tool, you could be like, he lied, hyphen, like they literally cut themselves off, hiss through his teeth, right? That could be a way to do it. But I also just like this. I think it's a fun little thing. And in like casual writing and fan fiction, that's stuff you can explore and get away with. There's more flexibility than like a published novel or whatever. Worry about your friends instead of a former enemy, traveler. Who knows when I might decide this whole idea is awful and end up stabbing you lot in the back. That ruined the conversation in an instant. Beware looked at him with a knowing yet somber expression, the one he loathed to see, for he knew the meaning behind it. Paimon freaked, flying behind the blonde with a high-pitched yelp. As for the traveler himself, his expression went stone cold. An expression he didn't understand. Anger and malice was to be expected, but frigid stoicism? Now that was new. Link. The blonde used his new name like it was a curse instead of a gift, and he felt himself flinch despite himself. I sometimes wonder why I spared you that day. For this reason. You take everything you're offered and spit in its face. And for what? What's your goal? To make everyone hate you? Because you're succeeding. Wanderer opened his mouth to retort, perhaps with a snark deflection, as per usual, but the traveler was already a few steps ahead. We're leaving now. Thanks for the blessing, Nahida. We'll be off to Fontaine soon, so we need as many as possible. I think I really like what you're setting up. To me, the Wanderer seems like one of these characters that sometimes we see in media who's just like evil and doesn't seem to have a motive for their evil. It's a trope and a character archetype that I particularly dislike personally as a writer. Right, you mentioned they like do genocide and kill a bunch of people and blasphemy, and they're like trying to become a god or whatever. And I don't know Genshin Impact, but it sort of feels like, based on how you're describing them, you know, they don't seem to have a motive, according to the Traveler, right? For what? What's your goal? To make everyone hate you. He has a motive, I just didn't explain it in the context portion. So the Traveler's the character you play, right? In the game. And do you learn the motive late in the game or early in the game? I guess is my question, right? Because you're sort of placing this moment somewhere within the narrative, maybe before the game Genshin Impact begins, or afterward, or during. And at some point, since you say he had a motive, at some point the player learns his motive, right? So I think that's just something important to consider, that like you're by saying that you're placing the story within a certain moment within the game, right? Because like you don't know his motive yet, or like it's at the point in the game where the Traveler doesn't know the motive. But you know, I think that's fine. It's just something to note, right? Moving on. Traveler learns the motive behind Wanderer's actions after Wanderer tried to erase himself, if I recall correctly. Or before. I don't really remember. This part of the fic is poorly written. Yeah, I mean, definitely whatever you do. I don't know how ruthless fan fiction people are. How canonical, and it's probably different, like community to community. I'd imagine there are fan fiction communities where the people seem to be really care about this has to like fit within the narrative, and it has to like make sense with all of the lore, and there are probably fan fiction communities that are like chill as fuck and are like, oh cool, you did a cool thing there, and it breaks the lore, and that's fine. So you know, you already published it, got good reception. Okay, well then that's fine, right? Then that's cool. I will ask, right? You say that this section is poorly written, Lavendism, and I will turn it back to you as a question. What about it is poorly written? Uh, I mean to ask you that as an actual question. Or if you don't answer, you can let it be a rhetorical question that you dwell on. That's certainly your call. Uh, but if you know something is poorly written, or you feel that a part of your own work is poorly written, that's a really useful impulse as a writer, because you can look at it and ask, why? What about it? Right? Is it that the description is weak, or that the dialogue is whatever, or that the whatever is whatever? And once you can sort of like look into that impulse, it's bad. It's not just bad, but it's bad because it's poorly written because. And I'm not saying it's bad. I'm enjoying reading it, even as someone not not Genshin Impact literate. But when you have that impulse, right, uh, it gives you a guideline, a roadmap to sort of like make your own writing better, which I think is what most of us want. I say it's poorly written because of mischaracterization and plot holes. Like, Ether should have already known about Wanderer's motives. It's not cohesive with the actual game plot. I see. And that's okay, right? I think you can be incohesive with the plot, but I think you should probably do so intentionally. Because like fan fiction, right? The point is you can like spin off and create whatever you'd like and break the fiction. Break the official fiction and canon for your own purposes. But I think as a writer, in the interest of writing, work that communicates something or does something, we probably shouldn't just let the fiction and the accuracy slide without maybe intention behind that choice. And then chapter 2/section 2 starts bad IMO because of the mischaracterization I mentioned, but we'll get there. Okay. A couple of things stood out to me that that a lot of things that were outright stated where a description would have been better. For example, something brought back bad memories. The students gave him headaches. Instead of describing the headaches, the fact that something ruined the conversation, instead of alluding to it based on people's faces/actions, I think that's a generally good advice, right? This is our notion of show don't tell, which I would write it somewhere on here if this wasn't on a Google Doc. Show don't tell, right? Instead of that ruin the conversation in an instant, you could say, who knows when I might decide this whole idea is awful and end up stabbing you all in the back. Paimon freaked. Or Paimon yelped, suddenly flying behind the blonde, whatever, and trembling, holding onto his shoulders. Buer's face slowly dropped into a somber expression, eyes growing cold and steely, as if looking into the wanderer's soul. The traveler himself, right? Etc. This line almost it's almost already unnecessary, right? Because you say the conversation was ruined, and then immediately describe how the conversation is ruined, right? So he could just say, end up stabbing you lot in the back. Buer looked at him with a knowing yet somber expression, the one he loathed to see, for he knew the meaning behind it. Paimon freaked, right? Like, conversation's ruined. I wrote this last year, and I'm not as proud of it now. I could probably write it better now. Yeah, and I think it's very useful to look back on the things and, acknowledge that, like, we could do better. And I think there's also, you're also still very useful also to, like, share stuff like this, right? Because you can still learn things from old work. Because you're succeeding. Wanderer opened his mouth to retort. Okay, we read that one. He was ignoring the Wanderer now. deliberately moving past him without sparing him a second glance. He humphed. But in all honesty, it hurt. More than he expected it to. He was already being forgotten, thrown to the side like he was. He grit his teeth and tilted his hat down with a hard grip and turning away as the traveler left the sanctuary. He completely missed the look in the blonde's eyes after turning back to see the wanderer one last time. Yeah, cool. We will forge on. Hello, Kutara. We are reading Genshin Impact fanfiction from Lavendism. So that was part 1. Are there 4 parts in this? 3, maybe 5? 4, 5. So we can maybe do 2, the second one. Maybe 3, but probably just 2. Okay. Simulanka. The next time that Wanderer, unfortunately, met the traveler, it was right after he had saved Fontaine in the Simulanka. The idiot, plus his group of friends, fell off a waterfall and the idiot fainted. He knew he should react uncaring, but that's not what happened. Traveler, he yelled, flying as fast as he could, genuinely not noticing the looks the others were giving him, especially Paimon. He didn't give a single damn about his reputation in this moment. With all the volatile emotions swirling in him since their last meeting over a year ago, he knew he couldn't just let the blonde die before he understood why. Why was he already abandoned? Why couldn't people just stay with him? Why must they always die? He caught the traveler, plus the others, sighing in relief and floating down toward the ground. That's when he heard Paimon snickering, and he realized he acted far too rashly. So you do care, Hat Guy? The sprite said, floating over to the traveler with concern. The 2 women, Nilu and some other woman, later called Navia, looked at each other in confusion and shrugged. The rest of the conversation, after the blonde woke up, Wanderer felt his cheeks warm the entire time. It was like, small grammar things, but it's fine. It got worse when he let his nickname slip. Sunshine. Ugh. Sickeningly sweet for a puppet who shouldn't care. He drew the attention away from himself for this reason. Is this like setting up like gay romance between the Wanderer and the Traveler? There's gonna be a lot of strikeouts. Okay, I hate this part. It's so out of character. I mean, that's okay. So fan fiction is an interesting line, right? And a tricky thing because we're welcome in puppy plays. It's a tricky thing because some homoerotic tension. Yes, fan fiction's a tricky thing because we have this choice that we have to make to some extent, which is to break the fiction. If you don't break the fiction, you are just rewriting the same stories that have already been told. So you can break how characters are, right? That's the beauty of fan fiction. In your headcanon, the Wanderer can call the Traveler Sunshine, I think is what that was saying. And there can be homoerotic tension between the 2 of them. That's totally fine. But it sounds like, right, like if there's no homoerotic tension, I'm going to keep using your phrase, Ray, right? He actually does call him Sunshine in the game. Ah. Um, if there's no gay shit between them in the game, and you want there to be gay shit, you have to do some degree of mischaracterization. Uh, and like necessarily everything in fan fiction is sort of mischaracterization. So that's not inherently something to, I think, like feel to like need to correct, right? That being said, um sorry. I just saw the YouTube comment. I can't. um YouTube comment, I have a very deep and seductive voice. um so fucking funny. We making it to the Pride Parade with this one. Yeah. Send this fan fiction straight to the Pride Parade. Um okay. I completely lost my train of thought. Um Characterization, right? Mischaracterization. It's just about being intentional, right? And I'm sure as you look back on this work from a year ago, there are things you would be more intentional about, and how you break the characterization, how you mischaracterize certain things. And maybe, I mean, I've never written fan fiction, so this is a really interesting thought. But I could begin to construct like philosophical schools on how to write fan fiction. And maybe one school of thought is you only mischaracterize as much as you absolutely need to for your goal, right? You you need them to be gay. You need them to be gay. So you only change the characterization of the characters enough to justify that they're now gay. And then you keep as much of the fiction surrounding that intact. That's probably like one school of thought. But I could also see like another school of thought of fan fiction, which is like, this world is mine now and it's my playground, and I'm going to do whatever the fuck I want. And these characters have names, and this world has names, and I'm going to use them. But these are like my little dolls, and I can change them and pilot them around however the fuck I want, right? I think you run into the danger, well, maybe the danger of that, right, is that as you continually abstract, as you become more and more abstract from the actual IP, you I love how I'm taking fan fiction like really seriously. um uh as you move further into abstraction from the IP, you lose that really useful aspect of fan fiction where you can say something like Mini Durin, and everyone knows who Mini Durin is, because your Mini Durin could actually just be like entirely different because you've spun off so far, right? I always wondered the reason people write fanfic. Is it because they fully don't like some parts of the story and want to change it? Or is it because they like it so much they want to add their own things? It's probably different for everyone, and I don't write fan fiction. I'd have to imagine it's because they really like it, right? I think about the people who write fan fiction as like the people who like something the most. This is how my brain conceives of it, right? Someone writing fan fiction really digs this shit. Um, that might not be the same for everyone though, right? You might just really like a character and be like, I want to tell a story with this character, and this character relatively intact relative to the IP, because I had an idea for a story, right? Some people are just storytellers and they probably see something and they say, well, now I want to tell a story like this too. So that's probably another reason. Maybe there are hate fanfic writers in a sense, right? I don't like it, and I want it to be how I want it to be. I think usually not liking something is very closely related to liking it, though. Where if you read a whole book, maybe you really like it, and then something happens that you don't like, the degree of not like is probably going to be relative to the amount that you liked the book up to that point. So you really love an entire book and the ending is shit. And you get all up in arms because they ruined the whole thing. And now it's awful and they fucked up this media that you really loved. Why'd they have to do that? Okay, now I'm going to go write my own thing. Right? We can like and dislike things at the same time. So there could be an aspect of that as well. I've written hate fics before for actual novels because I hated the ending. And those were probably also novels that you predominantly enjoyed, right? Because to really hate an ending, I think you have to at least like some of what's leading up to it. Otherwise, it's just like bland. Yeah. And that's where you see people who like ravenously enjoy something, right? Really, really like something. And then something changes about it. You really love a musician, you really love an artist, and then they do something you don't like. So you hate them. You really love Taylor Swift, and then she like marries a man or whatever, and you don't like that she married a man, so now you're Taylor Swift's #1 hater, right? It's often the things we really love that we suddenly really, really hate. Some of the OG fanfics come from a place of hate. Like the Quixote of Avellaneda, where it's basically a fanfic of the Quixote of Cervantes, and they actually mock Cervantes for losing his hand. That's crazy. I guess it's no surprise, right, that fan fiction has been written for a long time. I imagine when Homer dropped the Odyssey, people like, whoa, this shit's crazy. And then they went and like wrote their own Odysseus fan fiction. And maybe even since it's an oral tradition, some of people's Odysseus fan fiction was so good that it became canonized. I'd like to imagine this. Now I want to write fan fiction, right, about Homer writing the Odyssey or telling the Odyssey, and then other people creating Odysseus fan fiction, someone loving it so much and creating so much Odysseus fan fiction that because of the nature of oral tradition as it spreads, it gets muddled, and some people like the fan fiction stories so much that they become canonized. So you could say like the Circe and the pigs story, right? Was like was some person began it as this weird like spin-off fan fiction because they were into like becoming pigs or whatever. And then people really, really dug that, so it got canonized. Someone write that. I mean, I could write that. Isn't Iliad fanfic the origin story of Rome? Isn't Iliad fanfic I have no idea. I don't know my history very well, and I haven't read the Iliad. I have read the Odyssey at some point in like high school. Yeah. And I've listened to what's the Odyssey like musical that was like an internet thing? Epic the musical. That was okay. I'm really not. It was okay. But I did listen to it. Well, let's go back to the actual fan fiction. How about it? How about it? Oh wait, maybe other people said things in chat. No, I don't really think so. To spoil the fanfic you're reading, yes, they're gay. Yes, let's go. Glad I picked up on that. Okay, sunshine, whatever. By the time they got alone time, purely to discuss the waterfall incident, the journey was already over. Minnie Durin was hanging out with him, despite his attempts to push the dragon away. He'll be abandoned eventually, the moment the dragon learned of his past. Hey, blank. Minnie Durin, the traveler greeted. He felt his posture stiffen. It was just like last time. Uh, hello, traveler, he replied, with a bit less venom than usual. Are you busy? I want to talk to you about something. I'm personally having trouble in this story keeping track of my traveler and wanderer, and which one is which. This is obviously not a problem that I think a Genshinite would have, but I'm like, they're both like verb and it's so difficult. You're seeing the Hadestown Pro shot next month. I'm so freaking excited. I saw Hadestown live. It was really good. I really liked that musical. Homer is in town to recite the Iliad. Oh, heck yeah. 9 hours of verses by a blind man later. Holy shit, this is long. It's like worse than Satan Tango. And I don't know what that is. Yeah. I feel like that would be... I mean, I guess it is that long. Yeah. That's crazy. Just pull up. Yeah, don't worry. Even Genshin players confuse them sometimes. Okay. Then I'm vindicated or something. Okay, anyway, private conversation. It's time for them to kiss. Maybe not yet. Probably not until like part 4. Okay. I wanted to talk to you about something. If I was, I wouldn't be letting you speak to me, he said with slight humor in his tone. The traveler's brow raised, but he said nothing of it. Why'd you save me? The blonde had cut straight to the point. Minnie Durin let the two... Why is it called Minnie Durin? That's such a dumb name. Like, we're having this beautiful gay. They're making up. They're gonna be friends again. And this fucking Minnie Durin, the dragon here. I don't even know what Minnie Durin looks like. It's just such a goofy name. I need to see what Minnie Durin is. Maybe if it's like more serious. Minnie Durin. See, like this is a goofy ass guy here. Like, why are you here? Leave. Stop. But then this is Durin. Durin kind of bad. I hope Durin is of age. Just because if I said that and they weren't, that would be bad. Durin kind of bad, but they're probably like 1,000-year-old dragon, right? Also, here is Hat Man. Hat Man, because he's got a hat and he's got a mini Durin. Look at that guy. He's kind of cute. He's 1 year old. Fuck. I take it back. I take it back. Durin is not bad. I hate this shit. They're either like 10,000 or they're like 2 weeks old, and there's no distinction. Fucking cackling. Yeah. Okay, well now I know like 2 more Genshin characters. That's really good. I feel literate. Now I can't say that the only character I know from Genshin is Venti, which is probably good, right? Maybe it's worse to know more. I'm not sure, but Venti being the only one who I knew is also bad in its own way. Venti, right? The femboy. Yeah. Femboy god. Yeah. Yeah. I know my femboys pretty well. So, just if it's a femboy, you can assume that I know them. Fuck. This is what happens when you read fan fiction. It's not good for my public image. Okay. I mean, I'm offering these lines willingly. Can we just lock in and read the fan fiction? That's what everyone's asking. Like, imagine that reading the fan fiction is being locked in. This is like the only place where that's the case. Lock in, read the fan fiction, ignore Minnie Durin, back to the gay stuff. Your story shouldn't end in a storybook world, he said. The blonde joked. I thought you wanted me dead, though. Minnie Durin piped up. You want him dead, hat guy? He sighed and grit his teeth. Maybe I did once. So what? It's not like I'm actively trying to murder you. The blonde huffed. True. But your behavior has been odd here. Wanderer scoffed. In what way? I'm not sure what you're referring to. You screamed and flew to save me. According to eyewitnesses, the blonde said very bluntly. You screamed and flew to save me, according to eyewitnesses, the blonde said very bluntly. And he felt like screaming again, but in frustration this time. Why did he have to do that? It meant nothing. He coolly responded with as little emotion as he could draw on. He tilted his face away. This is such a hard thing in dialogue, right? The he thing, right? Where you're trying to like refer to he said, and you end up losing which he is he, which is also very useful. Makes it very useful to really strongly characterize your characters through dialogue, right? Because if he is clearly talking like mini fucking dragon thing, then you know it's mini dragon thing. And if it's very clearly, sounds like the Wanderer. But I feel like you have the issue here where like, I mean, right? You screamed. But then like, so I guess this sentence is something I'm looking at specifically, right? You screamed and flew to save me, according to eyewitnesses, the blonde said very bluntly, and he felt like screaming again. Now, I see and I'm thinking he is the blonde, and then he becomes, obviously, the Hat Man, because screaming, right? He didn't scream, the blonde guy didn't scream, Hat Man screamed, so it's just tricky, right? Those, the things to watch out for. This is why we need to abolish pronouns. Everyone should use their full name and title every time they're referred to. I think that would just fix everything wobble dobsy, and people definitely wouldn't naturally, try to create easier solutions to refer to people, and we definitely wouldn't end up back in the same place. Ray, like this podcast I listen, where they actually had this camaraderie thing and homoerotic thing back. Wait, hold on. What are you saying? We're talking about the gay shit. Like this podcast I listen to, where they went, we're having the pronoun problem again in this comment. They actually had this camaraderie thing and homoerotic thing back then. Hell yeah, I want to go back. Mostly between an adult and boys. Never mind, don't want to go back. Don't understand gay shit. Sentence structuring. So it goes. Anyway, we're screaming. It's nothing. Coolly responding. I only saved you because it'd be more amusing to watch your betrayed face in the aftermath. The atmosphere sunk yet again. Immediately. I think, okay, this is more okay since it, like, calls back to the other one. We're, like, creating a theme. It'd be cool if he says something again later that sinks the atmosphere immediately, right? Be thou Rick, welcome. We're reading Genshin fanfic. Minnie Durin said sadly, will you also betray me, hat guy? He realized his error far too late. But it was better to continue with this farce, right? I should have been doing like voices for everyone from the start. It would have been way better. Someone gifted me a sub. Yeah, many subs were gifted last stream. Wanderer. Which one's the Wanderer? Ah. Go play with Nilo and Navia. Wanderer deflected. Minnie Durin acquiesced. The blonde huffed once the dragon was out of earshot. So you'll betray me one day? Too high. Too high. He needs like a ringing hero voice. So you'll betray me one day? Ha. You? Probably. It's in my nature. And the nature of all living things, too. The traveler interrupted him with malice in his tone, continuing his sentence. To balance the books, then move on. What a terrible excuse. Just when I thought you were opening up a bit, you proved me wrong. Does it even matter to you? Wanderer spat, his internal energy source overflowing. He stood up, summoning a vortex with his anemo and purposefully intimidating the blonde. You always like to pretend to care for everyone with your guardian complex. It's disgusting. If you wanted to try to get me to be good, you wouldn't be... The traveler stood his ground. Wouldn't be what? Pitying you? Do you actually think I pity you? Yes, you do, Wanderer screamed, and his core was starting to react to his emotions, electro spiking his hair up. The traveler grimaced. Oh, they're fighting. Our boys are fighting. I want them to kiss. The traveler grimaced. He tried to breathe, to calm down, but he ended up laughing instead. Quietly at first, then louder. Of course. You pity me. Who wouldn't? I'll leave you alone to your thoughts, the blonde muttered. Alone. Once again. As intended. Such a sad boy. So we have sad boy wanderer, and we have like friendly traveler who's trying and is maybe earnest, and wanderer is just like a bad boy or whatever. I don't know if a wanderer, disaster, gay, constantly fucking up his relationship. Seems so, right? That's I like those. So yeah, that's the first two parts of your fan fiction. Read out loud for your and the world's entertainment. I think we talked about a lot of things. I think it was actually really interesting to have the first ever fan fiction discussion on stream, and reading of fan fiction. I there's a lot there, right? There's a lot of things to talk about. Those sort of fan fiction schools of thought and the ways that one can approach it. We were able to talk about narration and characterization and description. And femboys and gay stuff and mini, what's he called? Mini fucking dragon. What's he? Mini Durin. Y'all don't want to read my first completed fic? Like, so first ever, does that mean it's like before this one? Are you saying it's very, very bad and messy and awful? First ever. Yeah, I probably don't, actually. I mean, if you send it, I want to read it, because I just love to read the things that y'all send me. 14,000 words and so many plot holes. I mean, yeah, that's the first things that we write, right? They suck. So anyway, any other questions or thoughts, love or derision for this piece? I don't think there's much reason for anyone in chat to hate on an innocent gay fanfic. But if you really just are fuming about something in this, now's the time to say it. And if you really, really loved it, you can say that too. But thank you, Lavendism, for submitting your work, for putting your fan fiction up on the screen of spectacle. Yes, I hate my gay fanfic so much. I'm just so angry about it. Yeah, so now you can go rewrite the ending and create a fan fiction of your fan fiction. And then we'll have... I feel like there's got to be a way to combine fan fiction and Inception, but I like merge those together. but I'm not sure how to fanfin. No, it doesn't really work. Anyway, fanception, maybe that's the one. I enjoyed it. Well done, Lavadism. Yeah. It's so icky. Why are there gays in my Genshin Impact fanfiction? Yeah, what the heck? You can't put gay people in my Genshin Impact. That's bad. Okay. Thank you so much for submitting that. And we'll be on soon to something else. In my headcanon, they're just roommates. Yeah, just roommates. Just roommates who, yeah, I don't know. uh, there are many people in here. Who else has submitted things to me? Who else has sent me things to read? I just arrived to Gay Genshin Impact. This is why I followed. Yes, Messier. That was actually the first fan fiction we've ever read on stream, which is pretty badass, and I find it's quite enjoyable to read fan fiction. So definitely encouraged for people of the fan fictioning ilk to send those sorts of things to the submissions if people want. I think it's pretty fun. I think fanfiction's cool. Nikki has like 3 things. Classics are Ace has poems. I know that Kutara has. Yeah, you have more stuff. Headcanon sounds way more exciting than headcanon with 2 N's. I see. Redneck accent. Gays in my Genshin Impact. Yeah. What the hell? What the hell? No gays here. Nikki's poems never disappoint. They truly never do, right? I think Ace, you've been sitting on poems for quite a while now. It feels like it's been a long time. Right? Like I feel like it's been a while. But maybe I'm forgetting something that we've read. What's your... Oh, on Discord you're just Liam. Right, because we haven't read Ode to a Poet yet. And that was like 21 days ago. Which is 3 weeks. Which is like a lot. I don't think anyone really has anything older than that. I guess maybe Kutara's chapter 2 is the same time. So we will read probably poetry. And then if I'm feeling it, we'll return to prose and probably read like Kutara or something. That's roughly a guesstimate of an outline, but these things can change. These things are always subject to change, and regardless, these things are subject to a 3-minute break before we continue. So I would encourage you all to stand up, look away from the screen that you might be looking at, whatever kind of screen that might be. Move your body, drink water, very healthy to do all these things. Do something nice for your body and soul. Yeah. We'll be back in just a minute. Hi. Hello. Welcome back. It's still me. It's still Imogen. My voice and face on your TV screen, or probably not TV screen. Some people, I guess, watch Twitch on their TVs. It's not something I would ever think to do personally. And the first time someone told me that people like watch YouTube and Twitch on TVs, I kind of broke my brain because I've always done so on a computer. But here I am on whatever kind of screen you have. Maybe not even a screen at all. Maybe you're just listening to my beautiful voice, as the random out of pocket YouTube chatter said. My deep and seductive voice, blasted into your brain through your ears. Uh, the TVs like the adults own. Yeah, I don't know. Not my scene. um, yeah, my voice is back and my face. That's what we're and poetry. We're gonna read poetry. We're gonna read Ace's poetry, which it's been some time since the last time we read your work. Have I read more than one of your pieces? I remember you sending me like the very early one that you were sort of inspired to write and then send to stream. Uh, did we read a second one? I don't remember. So this might be the second ever from you. But I know you've been writing and posting a lot on your Instagram, which is very good. It's a lovely thing to share work, and it seems like you're writing prolifically, which is pretty cool. Oh my gosh. Oh my gosh, this poem has the word hermaphroditus in it. Holy shit. Uh, I love hermaphroditus. Like as a character, as you know, OG femboy. Um that's awesome. I've been thinking about hermaphroditus a lot. It's just such a random thing. So seeing that in your poem is exciting thing. For those who don't know hermaphroditus, uh, today feels super themed. Yeah, it's Pride Month. Um, Hermaphroditus is the Greek sort of demigod, uh, offspring of Hermes and Aphrodite, Hermaphroditus, who was hermaphrodite, male parts and female parts, which is pretty much how my body is as a sort of non-binary post-transitioner. So that. Um, my weird queer body. My favorite band, Genesis, did a song called The Fountain of Salmachus, which is what introduced me to the legend of Hermaphroditus. That's sick. I love how classic rock sometimes just has these like crazy random like stories and themes in it that you never expect. I feel like I should check that one out. The Fountain of Salmachus by Genesis. I've listened to some Genesis, only like not ever intentionally though, right? Um, I've just listened to Genesis in the sense that I've heard Genesis probably in like classic rock playlists and maybe on the radio and here and there. I couldn't tell you what their most famous song is, but if you told me what their most famous song is, I would say that kind of makes sense, right? Um, yeah. I think you read Always and oh right, I was thinking of Always. I forgot about Perception Perspective. Yeah. So that's cool. Um, man, I'm still congested. I'm not sick, but I still have like a little bit of congested in my face. Uh, in my sinuses. Unpleasant. Not a fan, don't like it. No like. It's bad. Very bad. Right? Like sniffling? That's really annoying. That's not good for stream. Have you had tea with honey? No, it's not a throat thing. It's not a sore throat. It's a nasal congestion, sinus, feeling kind of stuffy up here. So maybe like mint tea would help. I know that mint often helps open my sinuses a bit. I could burn some incense, that might help. But or I could just like blow my nose. Crazy. I'll be back. Like literally 2 seconds. I'm gonna walk over here. Yeah, it's fine. Bro, where is? Okay. Better, mostly. Don't I sound better? Don't I sound a little lot less congested? Yeah. That's good. Okay. Blah, blah, blah. Okay. Classics are ace. Not to big myself up too much, but when I wrote this poem, I thought it was the best thing I'd ever written. It is pretty much the product of me putting my emotions on the page. That's all I'll say about it at the moment. That's awesome. I don't think that's bigging yourself up. I don't think there's anything egotistical in acknowledging, saying something is the best I've written, right? Because the first thing you write is the best thing you've written. And then you write another thing, and maybe it's better, maybe it's not. But once you write a better thing, it's the best thing you've written, right? And as artists, we have this continual sort of hierarchy where I think a lot of artists can tell you, oh yeah, the best thing I've written, whatever's at the top of the leaderboard is, this poem. And then there's maybe like a top 5. And then they write a new thing. And then like maybe it slots in, maybe it doesn't make the top 5. Like this happens. And the beautiful thing is the best thing I've written is ideally a doomed statement. We would like to, right? We would like to surpass the best thing we've written as artists. I think this is sort of the fatal, traumatizing reality of the pursuit of art. We write the best thing we've ever written, and then it's like, wow, I don't know how I could ever write something better than this. And then we like write for a while, and then like something comes up, and we do. And it's like, holy shit, this is the best thing I've ever written. Ad nauseum. A writer should never be ashamed of emotional honesty. Sure, certainly not. I don't think there's much in life to be ashamed about at all, really. We're just like people. What would we be as writers without emotions? Bad writers, probably. I don't think I don't think emotionless writing is necessarily bad, right? There's a lot of good writing that's like, I mean, think of Kant as I don't find Kant to be very emotional writing. I think it's pretty good, though. Also, what we think is our best might not be what the rest thinks is our best. Totally, right? It's all an opinion. Now, if you said, this is the best thing I've ever written, and thus, this is the best poem ever written, now we're now we're being egotistical, right? My very first poem was from when I was 4. Still the best poem I ever wrote because it lit the fire. That's really beautiful. Crazy that you were poeming it up at age 4, before I was born. Like Enrique Lin when he made his own anthology of his best poetry, And everyone was like, dude, there's none of your best shit in here. Yeah, it's really funny how that works. And that's often a valid, a good argument to point toward when we are, if we are submitting our work, let's say to a journal, or we're just sharing, or we are, what's the other one? Like publishing. To always be open to trying the poems that you don't like of your own, because it might turn out that those are the ones that are really broadly popular. It's not fair that you started way before the rest of us. Oh, it's not fair, but we have more time left on average, so there's that. I've got way more years to still be writing than Nikki does on average. I could die tomorrow, and that would suck. On average, though. One thing that always stuck with me was about video games. You might not make the best video game ever, but you might make someone's favorite video game. Yeah, right. And I think the same goes with art. I think for some reason the statement almost feels better with video games, because you can imagine someone like really, really ravenously loving a niche game and it becoming their favorite. But I guess that happens with books too, right? Someone's favorite book might be something like way obscure, and you know that. Definitely have way more years than I probably do. Yeah. My dinner's ready, so I'll have to catch up on some of the analysis later, but I'll be back soon. Yeah, that's totally chill. I think we can dig into it, start to do the cursory overlooks and overviews, and figure out this poem, think about this poem, and then you'll be back when we're hopefully getting into the meats and the potatoes or something. Okay. Let's read it. Let's read the poem. That's what I do here. As always, if chat, you have any comments, thoughts, things you like, things you want to point to that you enjoy, have questions, always feel free to ask those things. I really enjoy when you do that. Ode to a Poet. I saw you at the crossroads, where we were walking opposite ways, and now I'm writing this to you. An open letter that you may not receive, or know that it's even addressed to you. For I am too cowardly to speak directly at this time. A nonconformer, you brave performer, yet no one stays for curtain call. I am waiting in the wings when the lights go down and it's time to pack up and leave. A pile of letters, chronicling your life of love and pain, was left behind. I pocketed as many as I could, but now the ink is fading away. I won't claim to yet understand you, but your name is bolted to my brain. Your words slow my troubled breath, to a calm and tender crawl, to find that these lullabies are the product of a dying heart, to which I am merely a helpless observer. In this growing effort to understand, our hairs tangled together, strand by strand, our tears form a flash flood, and whilst our sorrow boils to the surface, would Hermaphroditus lay down and weep? Ode to a Poet. Applause from Wobbledopsy. Yeah, we can snap it up or applause it up in chat or whatever. So we have a bunch of things happening. I mean, I think jumping off the page, some things jump off the page, some feelings, some thoughts. There's some cool alliteration that comes in and out, right? I mean, we see it in line 2, this where we were walking. We see it a lot at the end in this like form flash flood tangled together strand by strand, right? We do some of that kind of alliteration, and there's some momentum that happens. But there's also some feelings, and I think this is more a feeling poem than like a technique poem in my mind. Also as something that you say, Ace, you poured your emotions out, right? Poured them onto the page. So I don't think it's much fun to talk about alliteration and all that bullshit. Although it's there and it's cool and you do some stuff. Be Thou Rick, you say, I really like poems that give me a sense of nostalgia for things I've never seen, met, felt. And this does that. I like that word, nostalgia. And nostalgia for something you've never felt. Right? This is a beautiful thing that poetry can do. It can give us an emotional connection to something foreign to us, and it can sort of create this bridge between people, this sort of empathetic connection, sort of fitting with this poem, this this poem that is also sort of I guess epistolary. I think that's the word, referring to like a letter, right? This poem is sort of a letter to someone in a way, right? It's addressed to you, trying to communicate things that I'm too cowardly to say. We even talk separately about letters later, which is kind of cool and solidifies this idea of writing letters. And letters are a really nice symbol. I think the letters here are something that contributes to that feeling of nostalgia, right? They are dated. It's something of another time, this sort of quaint idea of sending letters, of sending your thoughts through writing something down. Letters also do like a lot of things symbolically, and I think they do a lot for this work, right? Symbols have this way of maybe representing, letters have this way of representing distance. If you're sending a letter, there is some distance that must be crossed. It really doesn't make sense to send letters to people who are like proximate to you. I've tried, it doesn't really work very well. People usually find it really weird. And like, so, and that distance is closed by many things or opened by many things, right? When you can call someone or text someone, the distance is closed between you and them, and then maybe you don't need to send them a letter. But then at the same time in this work, we're talking about a sort of emotional distance, something that cannot be broached any other way, that cannot be, we cannot speak to this person to get our ideas across. And so we resort to this sort of poetic letter, which is cool. I'm going to read it again. I think there's a lot of like kind of concrete imagery. I think this poem feels very symbolic, right? When we say like hermaphroditus at the end, when we have things like the crossroads is a pretty common symbol, and a symbol that has almost become just like the meaning itself. Like we can describe something as a crossroads to refer to like an inflection point, something where you might change, where you might go in a different direction. And like we almost don't talk about crossroads as a physical thing anymore. It's like been abstracted. Anyway, I'm going to read it again. I'm rambling. Ode to a Poet, again. I saw you at the crossroads, where we were walking opposite ways. And now I'm writing this to you. An open letter that you may not receive, or know that it's even addressed to you, for I am too cowardly to speak directly at this time. A non-conformer, you brave performer, yet no one stays for the curtain call. I am waiting in the wings when the lights go down and it's time to pack up and leave. A pile of letters, chronicling your life of love and pain, was left behind. I pocketed as many as I could, but now the ink is fading away. I won't claim to understand you, but your name is bolted to my brain. Your words slow my troubled breath to a calm and tender crawl, to find that these lullabies are the product of a dying heart, to which I am merely a helpless observer. In this growing effort to understand, our hairs tangle together strand by strand. Our tears form a flash flood, and whilst our sorrow boils to the surface, would hermaphroditus lay down and weep? So, I think there's a very important idea that sticks out to me in this poem. And it is the leaving that is happening in this work. Leaving. I saw you at the crossroads where we were walking opposite ways, right? This is the beginning, right? You're going somewhere else, going off into a distance to not be seen for some time, right? This is the distance over which we now feel we need to write a letter, right? We have these other implications of endings, right? A curtain call. I stay for the curtain call, and then, it's time to pack up and leave, and what's left is this pile of letters, these memories, right? Things left behind. I won't claim to understand, but your name is bolted. So, right, you're gone and I can't forget you. Your words slow my troubled breath to a calm and tender crawl. To find these lullabies are the product of a dying heart. Right? Dying. So there is a departure. And it's characterized in a number of ways. As leaving on a crossroads. As a curtain call. As time to pack up and leave. As left behind. As a dying heart. And I think there's a very important question. And one that would lead a number of people, depending on who you are, to interpret this poem differently. And that question is, what is the leaving? Is the leaving like a literal, sort of proximal, like going away? Let's say a friend who has moved far away. Death is a reasonable way to read it, I think, right? I mean, we say a dying heart. Another leaving, another death that I think might be reasonable to look to, sort of justified by our hermaphroditus and the notion of dying, is a like transition, right? I think there's a very queer reading of this poem, someone transitioning, and then there's like a death, and then there's these like parts of them from before that I, the writer of the letter, the I of this work, still appreciates, still loves, still sees. And yet, this person has moved on from that. I think this makes sense, right? A non-conformer, you brave performer, yet no one stays for the curtain call. This sort of non-conforming as a gendered way, and a gendered death, a death of the past. You now go opposite ways. I think those are all like probably pretty valid readings of this poem, or at least readings of leaving, and then those would all interact with this poem in very different ways. Be thou wrecked, you say the occasional near rhymes inside the lines are very pleasing to the ear. Receive slash speak. Receive. Maybe it's a different receive. I'm not sure. Receive and speak, wings and leave, away and brain, calm, crawl, lullaby. Yeah, we have a lot of really nice sound things happening throughout, where there's these little bits of assonance, there's these moments of alliteration, there's these moments of just like pure rhymes. Oh, receive, speak. I see. And then there's these like near rhymes, slant rhymes, assonant kind of sounds. And yeah, it creates a certain tone. Right, you say pleasing. And I think pleasing, but they also do something to really like set a tone for this poem is I think what I'd like to suggest. Also, Wobbledobsy, you say you like the awe sounds of the last few lines of the second verse. The last few lines of the second verse. Pocketed as many as I could, but now the ink is fading away. I won't claim to understand you, but name is bolted to. Yeah, so we have some of that, right? Evocative of performance, similar to the poem itself. Question mark. The whole piece feels like a warm hug to the brain. Interesting. Yeah, I think this like in and out, this like variety of sound that sort of pushes and pulls, creates like. I think it has something to do with the feeling of warmth, but also like a feeling of instability to me, right? I saw you at the crossroads where we were walking, right? Like there's these pushes, these moments that wanna like be infused with a little more emotion, opposite ways. And then like things go in many different directions, right? We have these like periods and then like asides. We have these M dashes that push us in a lot of different directions. And it feels, I think there's a lot of warmth, but it's like maybe warmth to a degree where it's overflowing and it can't contain itself almost, maybe. I saw you at the crossroads where we were walking opposite ways, and now I am writing this letter to you, an open letter that you may not receive or know that it's even addressed to you, for I am too cowardly to speak directly at this time. Right? We have these like pushes and these repetitions, and then we have these like pullbacks, and then a non-conformer, you brave performer. There's warmth here, yet no one stays for the curtain call. I'm waiting in the wings when the lights go down, and it's time to pack up and leave. A pile of letters, chronicling your life of love and pain, was left behind. I pocketed as many as I could, but now the ink is fading away. Right? It's not all warm. We have this sadness in things, the fading of the ink. We have this packing up and leaving. We have a life of love and pain. And I think maybe that's a line that sticks out in a way, right, from this poem. Love and pain. Because really, like, that seems to be a lot of what's happening here. There's a deep love, there's a deep care, there's a deep compassion, and then there's this underlying confused sort of feeling of loss, right? I won't claim to understand, I'm trying to understand something. But then there's also like there's love and there's growing closer, and there's like closeness and distance and these like separations of self and connection. And this is why I lean toward like maybe the queer reading of this poem as opposed to like the literal leaving or the death, because we have this continued effort to understand and grow closer, hair tingling together, right? And so we could think of maybe like the person this being addressed to as a literal, right, hermaphroditus. And then it becomes this deep love, but confusion at the change, desire to understand, questioning of whether the past is dead or the beautiful things one once loved about that person still remain, right? People say this when their children transition. Uh, you know, you killed my child, right? You killed my son, you killed my daughter. And that sort of, so it has this feeling of like, this old you is dead, but I loved that old you and I still love you. How do I handle this? Is kind of how it feels to me. I like the feeling, even though there's motion and a sense of limited time, people walking different directions and time to pack up and leave, the speaker is taking a moment to sit in the emotions, even if they don't fully understand what the emotions are. Yeah, it's very lost, but it's trying, right? That's maybe a feeling I would put. Lost, but trying. And I think that's a beautiful thing when it comes to like love. Maybe this is almost a way to describe love itself, right? Being lost, not understanding, not knowing in relation to another human and their experience, and yet still trying to care and to understand and to grow closer, even sort of in spite of that. And I think maybe that's one of the things that makes this poem feel so, well, both real but also like genuinely emotional, right? It's very much my way to express empathy. Yeah, empathy. Not knowing, but trying and wanting to understand and attempting. I think that's all we can do. We can't truly understand other people. Not on like a 100% level. I was meaning sonically. It feels like being wrapped in all the sounds. Yeah. There's a bit of an undercurrent of hope. Yeah, I mean, it certainly, I think that makes sense that we'd read it that way. Because hope is really about like the possibility of a future, right? The possibility of better, the possibility of closer and less bad, but it necessitates a temporal reality. And we begin this poem at the end of something, right? Walking opposite ways. And yet, by the time we get to the end of this poem, right, we're growing closer. We're trying to be closer. We're trying to understand there's still connection. And so it can be sort of read that we go from like departure and absence to less than absent. And maybe from there, the trajectory is something like true closeness. So there would be hope there. I'm going to read the whole thing again. I saw you at the crossroads, where we were walking opposite ways. And now I am writing this to you, an open letter that you may not receive, or know that it's even addressed to you, for I am too cowardly to speak directly at this time. A nonconformer, you brave performer, yet no one stays for the curtain call. I'm waiting in the wings when the lights go down and it's time to pack up and leave. A pile of letters, chronicling your life of love and pain, was left behind. I pocketed as many as I could, but now the ink is fading away. I won't claim to yet understand you, but your name is bolted to my brain. Your words slow my troubled breath to a calm and tender crawl, to find that these lullabies are the product of a dying heart, to which I am merely a helpless observer. In this growing effort to understand, our hairs tangled together, strand by strand, our tears form a flash flood, and whilst our sorrow boils to the surface, would Hermaphroditus lay down and weep? So I think this last line needs some more of my attention, right? I'm not sure I quite have a feeling of what this is doing for me. Right. It provides evidence of one interpretation, right? That we're talking about a death as a gendered one, and that, this person is killing their past, and that's the walking away, and we still love them as they were and love them as they are now, and there's this thing with names bolted to brains. Um, but I think so in that reading, right, you in the poem become the hermaphroditus laying down and weeping. Now, the other intuitive reading is maybe that hermaphroditus exists outside, right, as a symbol. And then there's like me and you, and then would hermaphroditus lay down and weep regarding sort of our situation. But I want to look up hermaphroditus. He has a lot of like a lot of meanings, because this is how Greek often goes, right? A child of Aphrodite and Hermes. Because Hermaphroditus is a child of Hermes, he's a minor romance deity symbolizing intersexuality, androgyny, and marriage. But we also have like the story of Hermaphroditus himself, which I think is important background, associated with the nymph of Salamakis, which is that fountain, the Genesis song, who's represented variously as his nurse wife or attempted rapist. According to the Roman poet Ovid, he was born a remarkably beautiful endosex boy whom Salamakis attempted to rape and prayed to be united with forever. The mystical forces of the universe merged their two forms into one and transformed him into a being of two sexes, both male and female. While popular in the modern day, this was a late story not represented in ancient Greek mythology. So, union of sexes is one way to see it. Union of sexes, intersex, and then we have like, hermaphrodite as another way to describe someone as like trans. We have marriage, right? Again, union of sexes. So there are a number of ways that we can read hermaphroditus. And my door just closed on its own. I'm going to reopen that, or else it'll get hot. And I dropped something. Where did it go? Where are you? Where did it fall to? There it is. Okay. I'm back. Oh, that's gross. I can like feel the sweat on on my headphones because it's so hot here. It's gross. My intention behind the last line was to bring attention to the imagery related to trying to connect through that union of sexes. As you said, trying to understand the experience of the other in the want to live through it. Okay. Well, there we go. We have your intention. To understand, right? And this makes sense. Growing effort to understand. We have it in many places. So to have this union to close the distance, right? Because the distance we described earlier, um, right? We have these various distances, but I think one can just also be like the fundamental distance of being other, right? Of being someone else, of being a different person, and trying to understand someone, trying to connect with them and their experience, and that being a very, uh, you know, difficult thing to do. Uh, which I think just makes this poem. Uh, what am I saying? Sometimes it's hard to find words all the time. Talking about poetry in real time. Right. Poems are hard. uh, Maybe we'll come back. We'll point back to some other part of the poem, and that can help me understand things. That might be a good idea, or just to redirect. Um, Title. We haven't talked about the title at all, and the title is "Ode to a Poet," and I think that's like very clever here in a sense, right? We're so the person, the you, is a poet, right? That tells us this. A poet in some way. Maybe they don't have to literally be a poet, but they probably are. And we have the poem that we are sending characterized as a letter. And the cool thing is that means that when we talk about a pile of letters later, right, that you, the poet, have written, I think we can read this as a pile of poems, which makes this quite beautiful, right? Because then it's like a poet and a poem, a poet and a poet trying to understand each other through poetry, which I might say is doomed to fail, because poetry is a really oblique way to communicate your emotions. But and we have this cowardice to speak, right? So, but there's a real beauty to the empathy of this, right? Because we see someone who expresses themselves through the letters of poetry. And so the natural response, the empathetic response of I, is to sort of write a letter in return, a letter being a poem, to sort of create this correspondence, this ability to understand, to try to understand someone through their art, through the things they've created, through, right, their confessions, their chronicles of life, and a life of love and pain, which I think there's probably that's probably a very good way to just describe poetry in general, right? Chronicles of a life of love and pain. Um, and yet, right, someone else is writing, someone else's poetry is necessarily consigned to being in the past. The ink is fading. You change, you continue to non-conform and perform and move forward and grow. And yet I'm also like, I love these things that you've created in the past, these beautiful lullabies, right? Lullaby song, poetry song. I think that's another thing that connects all that to poetry. Um, but then it becomes incredibly difficult, right? We feel helpless, we feel passive, because to truly understand poetry, uh, I mean, this is sort of a something I think I have to admit to resigning to, is that poetry can't be understood, right? For all of the time that I spend on stream talking about poetry, and maybe by some people's perceptions, even as I say, ostensibly trying to understand, um, it doesn't work that way, you know. poems are sort of these expressions, and we see them as mirrors, and we feel them, and we experience them, and they become vessels for the things that we're trying to say. Um, but I think there's a reality of those things falling on deaf ears, uh, which makes it like beautiful, tragic, right? Tragic love in a sense, which I think is nice, right? With the use of hermaphroditus as a symbol, as a tragedy, not a great Greek tragedy, in terms of like the tragedies that have really endured, but a tragic story and a tragic sort of, maybe not love, but something like it, obsession. And if we see hermaphroditus, right, maybe here, I'd like to read it this way. Hermaphroditus is as the union of these two. I think we can see laying down and weeping in two ways. I would like to read this in two ways. To lay down and weep is maybe to resign, right? To give up. And I think to lay down and weep might also be to like truly be overcome with emotion, to truly connect. This could also be seen as a sort of victory, I think, especially with our tears forming a flash flood, merging together in the way that the hair merges together. And so you ask the question, would hermaphroditus lay down and weep? Right? After all this effort, after this trying to understand, would we become one, or would we find that we fail? Right? Would we find that, it's a sort of a doomed union, and hermaphroditus is, a symbol and a demigod because hermaphroditus is not real, right? Because hermaphroditus is ideal, the idealized union of sexes, and it leaves it as a question, right? Where whether or not you see the laying down and weeping as, resigning or as, connection and sort of overcoming that distance, there's still the question at the end, the open end, maybe the hope, right? The hope, as Nikki said, because we don't know. It has to play out. We're continuing, it seems, to grow closer to this person, to connect more deeply, to share more poems in the correspondence. I had someone who I wrote poems back and forth with. We grew very close very quickly, and then everything fell apart. After writing this poem, I was sort of reminded of a poem by Carol Ann Duffy called The Biographer, which is about the titular biographer's frustration at understanding the author, who they are writing about. That sounds like a really cool poem. And I don't think I've read it, but I'm going to copy and paste it into my browser. And then there's a high chance that the tab just gets closed later, but maybe I'll look at it, right? The biographer. Why? I just want the poem. I don't want poem analysis. Jeez. It's useless. I hate the internet. Okay. I had to study a bunch of Duffy's poems in A-level English. I don't know what A-level is. I know it's one of those British words for levels of school. We have grades here. Maybe high school. How old were you in A-level, I guess is the question. Yeah, I guess that's some thoughts about this work. It I think one of my favorite parts about this is the interplay of these sort of contrasting things. A-level, okay, gotcha. High school. the contrast, right? The subtle contrast between like leaving and being, and like distance and closeness, and that the distance doesn't feel far away and the closeness doesn't feel close. It's almost like it's playing with contrast, but not contrast of extremes, which is also sort of strange since we're talking about like man and woman, gone and here, like alive and dead, um, which seem to be things that exist on far opposite ends of a spectrum of contrast, and yet everything in this poem feels very very close, very melded together, and maybe hermaphroditus is doing a lot of work here for that, but I enjoy that fact. Does anyone have comments or questions on this work? Thoughts? Praise? Parts of the poem that you feel I didn't look at very closely? Clarification on anything I said? All of that's welcome. Earlier, Be Thou Rect, you said you appreciate my approach to poetry, where I don't necessarily have to reach full understanding of everything to appreciate or enjoy it. Yeah, I think that's a concession I definitely make. To some people's dismay, we have seen. I really like it. Super evocative. It is. Very pleasing to listen to. Yeah, you do some nice sound things. I understand why this would be a best I've written up to that point, right? I understand that. I don't think I have much more to say. Classics, do you have questions, thoughts? I know you missed some of it, but yeah. I'm quite tired. I think this is going to be the last one for today. As a very new poet, it blows my mind that people could write things like this. Really cool. Yeah, it's well, I mean, practice and putting emotions, pouring emotions onto the page. That's what you said this was, right? Uh it was just really putting the emotions on the page, and I think that works a lot of the time. To be fair, when I wrote this, I'd only started writing seriously for a few weeks. Yeah, so and you were writing a lot. Like you've been very prolific since you started a couple months ago or whatever. I feel like you definitely seem to have taken to it. Um, but yeah, I think with practice and with attention and with care to sound, and especially, I don't know, like y'all, I feel like I've seen people in this community pick up poetry very quickly, and maybe it's just because y'all hang out and listen to me talk about poetic devices and consume a lot of poetry, and even if you're only half listening, right, it's like there. And I don't know, it's always actually very impressive to me, because I've had a number of people come into this stream and like start poetry either directly as a consequence of it or is sort of in conjunction, and y'all develop very quickly. It's cool. Part of me wonders whether I've been writing too much lately, but it's definitely something I've gradually felt more natural at doing. Yeah, I think I usually think, well, I don't know if I agree with this anymore. I was gonna say, well, you're probably writing too much. I think there is such a thing as writing too much, be thou wrecked. I think you're writing too much if you are dissatisfied by how much you're writing. Like if you're suffering, you know, if it's like pulling you away from other things in a way that you don't like. Now, that being said, sometimes it's okay to like put your head down for a month and be doing nothing but writing and like abandon the rest of your life. Like, if that's okay with you, then that's not too much writing. So it's different for everyone, whether something is too much or not enough. But I think if it creates like neuroticism and pain and suffering, then it's too much. And if you're not writing and it's causing you like pain and suffering, then it's probably not enough. Uh, my original answer was going to be, if you're forcing yourself to write, you're probably writing too much. But I don't think that's the case. I think there is a place for just forcing yourself to sit and write, but that's only if you want to, like if you're actively deciding to. If you're being like forced to by some like weird external pressure, that's probably almost always bad, because it can burn you out and then you'll be left like without the pressure and you'll be like lost. But maybe not for everyone. Maybe if your external pressure is big enough, right? If you feel compelled by God to write, then that's okay. I wouldn't suggest it. Plus, it's led me to connect to a lot of other poets around my age on Instagram recently. That's excellent. That's cool. I definitely just, Instagram is just where I throw my poetry into the void and just bad screenshots of my obsidian. And unsurprisingly, it doesn't do very well. And that's okay. I'd argue one can write aimlessly, but never too often. Well, I mean, like, I think aimlessly is okay, right? I mean, it can be bad if you, again, it's like, if you're writing so much you hate yourself, you're probably writing too much. If you're writing aimlessly and you hate the fact you're writing aimlessly, you should probably stop writing aimlessly. If you are absolutely hating the fact that you're not writing, then go fucking write, But whatever it is that's like causing distress is usually a bad thing. Part of why I felt burnt out by filmmaking was because of pressures for my course. Yeah, totally. Just write whenever you feel like it. I'm pretty much the same. I might change that fact, though. I might start writing more than I want to, intentionally. I'm not sure about this, though. We can keep talking about that, but I want to read this poem one more time and take it off the screen, because I think we're pretty much done talking about it. So here's Ode to a Poet by Classics Art Ace. I saw you at the crossroads, where we were walking opposite ways. And now I am writing this to you, an open letter that you may not receive, or know that it's even addressed to you, for I am too cowardly to speak directly at this time. A non-conformer, you brave performer, yet no one stays for the curtain call. I am waiting in the wings when the lights go down and it's time to pack up and leave. A pile of letters, chronicling your life of love and pain, was left behind. I pocketed as many as I could, but now the ink is fading away. I won't claim to yet understand, but your name is bolted to my brain. Your words slow my troubled breath to a calm and tender crawl, to find that these lullabies are the product of a dying heart, to which I am merely a helpless observer. In this growing effort to understand, our hairs tangled together, strand by strand, our tears form a flash flood, and whilst our sorrow boils to the surface, would Hermaphroditus lay down and weep? Ode to a Poet. Ode to a Poet by Classics Art Ace. Yeah, thank you for submitting. And I guess also thank you to Lavendism for submitting earlier for your fan fiction. But thank you for your poetry. It is lovely. I always appreciate to read y'all's work, and stream doesn't happen, right, without y'all sending things, so that's good. uh, I need the poetry and the writing to sustain this. Y'all are the fuel for the fire, the big logs. I'm the, I don't know, kindling or something. maybe I'm the fire. Maybe the stream is the fire, I'm the kindling, you're the fuel. Something like that. Maybe I'm the fire. I just started. Y'all let it. Y'all are the what lets it burn. Yeah. I don't know. I'm tending the fire. Maybe that's it. Sauron. We're like the orcs in Lord of the Rings, checking rings, checking trees, chucking trees in. I see. Y'all are okay. Y'all are throwing fuel into the fire. The stream is the fire. I don't know. We're the fuel and you're the match. Something like that. I don't know. I'm the match. Okay, I can be a match. That's cool with me. Yeah. Yeah, I feel like I've been stream is the dynamite, maybe. I feel like I've been writing not enough. With the discussion of writing enough and not enough. I've been living my life very passively for a while. Is something that I've noticed, and I have a very sudden dissatisfaction with the fact that I haven't been really doing anything or like trying to accomplish anything. And maybe that means I will write more as something to sort of pursue and chase and capture, to maybe try to write something beautiful. I don't think I've had like a desire in my poetry. I've just done it. But the idea of trying to write beautiful things is compelling to me. I don't think I would write poetry as communication. I sort of hinted at that in the analysis, that I don't think it's a good idea, at least for me. I don't think I've been writing enough. That's a thought. We are the metaphor, and you are the simile. Stream is the comparison. Yeah, I don't know about that one. I don't know about that one. All my poetry is communication. I think that's reasonable, right? Definitely not my angle, though. Yeah. No, it's sort of, so I just like kind of started writing poetry 3 years ago, right? I just started. I just happened to do it because I had stopped playing music, and I wasn't doing anything in my life like artistic. I was thinking that I was going to become a math teacher once I quit playing saxophone, which I now play saxophone again. And so I just actually I was reading a lot. I was reading a lot of like classic literature, and even like Shakespeare and stuff. And then I met a friend, and my friend was like, "I think you should write poetry." I'm like, "Huh? Okay, sure." I was kind of into her, so I started writing poetry, and got the books that she recommended me or whatever. That didn't really work out, and that's fine. And then so then I just like started writing, and then I didn't like, I don't know, I don't think I had a reason, you know? And like I wasn't trying to do anything, and I just kept writing for like a year, and I started doing it on stream sort of accidentally. So it wasn't what stream set out to be. And then I just kept writing, and then I like stopped for a while because I like hated it, streaming and poetry. And I started writing again, and stream came back. I never really had a strong, like, compelling reason, because I was never very strongly compelled. And now I, like, want to be a compelled person. I want to desire things in some capacity. Or I want to, like, live my life from the perspective of action. Uh, and that means, like, everything that I've been doing passively no longer works in, like, that framework. I can't do it the same way, I guess, in my head. So it has to do something. It has to desire something. And, like, I can stream because I want to, like, talk about poetry and teach people about things and learn things, and that's cool. Um, I wonder if I should be more intentional about stream, like growing it or whatever. I'm unsure. Poetry is more of an art of words, like an art of rhythms through time, just as music is the art of sound and rhythm through time, or agriculture, which is also an art of time. Yeah, I suppose so. I I used to really talk about art as a tool of communication, like almost in a utilitarian way. Um, but I think, like, talking about art as art, right? Art as something in the name of, I don't know. Maybe I'll have to go back and ponder all these questions again. We used to do this a lot on stream. We used to talk about, what is art, and is art communication, and what is poetry, and why do we do it? And I got very tired of these conversations because I kind of came to conclusions about all of that myself. So we don't have them as much anymore. Sometimes we still do. But maybe now that I've had a big shift in my frame, uh, we could do these things again. And I might start spewing out vastly different things about poetry than I've than I've said before. Um, I'm not sure. I'm just rambling. I'm tired. The plan is to end stream and take a nap because then I have. Well, end stream, like, do some stuff and take a nap because I've already been up for 7 hours, and then I have. But band practice isn't until like 9 p.m. So if I stay up from 4:30 to like 11:30 p.m., I'm gonna be miserable by the end of band practice. So I need to nap at some point in here, which is good. That's why I woke up early, so I would have to nap. What is art? Why is art? I'll make you one better. Who is art? I think that last one's good. Who is art? Um, yeah, I've heard art described in so many different ways. I don't know. It's sort of a mess. I might make a band with a friend. We've been talking about that. That's super sick, Ray. You should totally do that. Being in a band is very fun. Being in a band also makes you realize that there are a lot of things about your friends that are very difficult when you're trying to, like, organize things and do things intentionally and, like, communicate with each other. It's like being in a D&D campaign, like, sure, it's super fun, but you have to schedule the sessions, and you have to, like, get the fuck along, and you have to, like, um, and then with a band, even for some people, there's more stakes because they, like, want to accomplish something, or they want this level of output, which I'm one of those people. I want us to be good. I want us to grow. So then you run into all these disagreements. Then people have schedule things and whatever. Da, da, da. When I used to be a manager for local bands, it was actually like herding cats. Yeah, I bet, because they're all artists and we want to make art, and we just want to play our music, and we don't want to, you know send you the stage map for the show or whatever. Yeah, all sorts of things. Anyway, that's all for stream. I'm not gonna raid anyone because I don't want to. I'm even gonna. I'm not even gonna. I'm not even gonna open Twitch and see who I could raid because then I'd have to see, and then I'd be like, oh, but I could raid this person. No, no raid, no nothing. Ending stream. Go scatter off to your own corners of the internet or reality, ideally. I don't know. Get off your damn computers. Um, that's what I'm gonna do. Yeah, I'm gonna read and nap and all that. Thank you all for watching. Thank you for watching. I have been Imogen. Thanks for the people who submitted. Keep making art you love. And keep finding beauty in the world. Bye.